Today's webinar, how
Come on in.
to become your own general contractor. So I'm talking to somebody who's actually done it, still doing it apparently. So also into carpentry and siding and everything else. So my friend Paul Jankowski, how you doing, Paul?
Doing great. Yeah, I can give you some background on my experience with building. Ashley and I built our first house in 2012, and we used her father as our general contractor. And I did a lot of the specialty contracting. I had a full-time job at the time, and basically I would get off work at 5, I'd drive to the house, and I would lay floors, build cabinets, hang lighting fixtures, do tile work till midnight, till I couldn't stand it anymore. And I go home and sleep and start my workday the next day. So I learned a lot. We learned a lot about budgeting. We worked with a construction loan, and that was pretty nerve-wracking because there was only so much money allocated to each thing in a time frame that it had to get done in. Otherwise, The bank was getting very upset with us. They don't like to have their assets just hanging out there, not complete, because they don't want to build a house. They just want to sell it if you mess up.
Well, I'm really glad you brought that up because I didn't put that in my questions, but I do want to talk a little bit about the construction loan process because it just to your point, it's very complicated.
And then the house that we worked with you on was going to be for our grandmother. She needed a place to live that was a single story for limited mobility, and it was going to be close to us. In the meantime, she decided she wants to stay at the assisted living. And so the new plan for this house is going to be a luxury Airbnb, and then eventually a house to retire in. So it's being built to a nice high standard, and it's right on the water of Lake Allatoona.
Yeah, it is. And I got to get back out there. I think it was almost a year ago last time I was there, but really beautiful view of the lake. So if you're going to turn that into an Airbnb, selfishly, I'd love to stay there real soon.
Sure.
So, how far along has that come since? I mean, last time I was there, the framing was done. I think you were just starting to do the siding. Where are y'all at now?
Yeah, the siding is still ongoing. It's a new material that nobody here in the Southeast is using. It's a architectural grade steel.
Okay.
So it's not like a steel roofing applied to the walls. It's a siding product, and it's going to look really cool. It's a dark gray color, and the windows are all black. So the roof is black on this house. So it's going to be a nice look, but it comes with some challenges for installation and a couple of things I've discovered that the manufacturer has never done before. So I'm kind of winging it.
Yeah.
But as far as the rest of the house, everything else is done.
Yeah, well, I really love the black. I love the black on black. I think that's really sleek, and I love how you have this like angled roof, the way it's stacked kind of on top of each other with those transoms coming into that light. I love that design. It's a cool house. So, but yeah, it's been a fun project to watch you work on. I got to see a lot of your progress where you were actually putting in the subfloor heating. All the insulation. I mean, you've really kind of made this your baby in a lot of ways. So this project in particular that we're talking about, if I'm understanding you correctly, this is the one that you've really taken on start to finish as your own GC. So my first question is why? Why did you want to do that? It doesn't work for everybody. There's reasons to do it. There's reasons not to, but my biggest question was what was it that inspired you to want to do it that way?
So the main inspiration was that I like to do a lot of the specialty contracting, and the purpose of a general contractor is to line up the specialty contractors, check their work, handle basically the overall project, and make sure things are happening on time, on schedule, and you're getting good work done. I like to do a lot of the actual work that the general contractor would be supervising, so it seemed like a pretty logical next step just to be my own contractor. In Cherokee County, there's a thing called the owner affidavit that you sign, and it allows you to build your own house and act as the general contractor. And the building inspectors work with you knowing that you are the owner, and they're very friendly. They help you out. I can call them anytime and ask them if I have questions. I have a code book, and I basically try to build beyond the code book. I like the houses to be a little bit stronger. I don't want things creaking or swaying in heavy winds. I build things pretty stout. So I go beyond. I do heated floors in pretty much everything I've built, which is not normally common in Georgia. But those hydronic systems can be an adder of $25 a square foot in a slab, and I can do it in materials, a couple $1,000s. So,
oh wow,
those are some of the reasons why I like to be my own contractor.
Yeah, well, like you said, when we were getting started, building your own cabinets, doing a lot of your own carpentry. Not everybody wants that level of hands-on type of experience. I think a lot of people like doing the administrative work or the creative work. What are some other reasons somebody should do this? I'm kind of tagging along on that question. Like,
yeah. So if you're not like me and wanting to actually do a lot of the work yourself, some of the other reasons are basic price negotiation, because you're now in charge of lining up all the subcontractors. So you can get multiple bids, and you can concentrate on contractors that are going to give you either a good price or better quality of work. A lot of general contractors use the same people every time, and that can be a benefit or a detriment depending on the quality that they put out.
right.
That's the main benefit of hiring somebody, is they have the contacts. But with the internet, it's so easy to find subcontractors, but you got to vet them, and you kind of need to know what they're doing, so that you know if you're getting a good job done, and if they're going to be doing it to code, or if they're going to show up and get it done on time. But being on the administrative side, you can have more control of that. I also like to make sure that my contractors aren't wasting materials. There's different ways that you can build your house. You supply the materials, or your contractors supply the materials. I've done it both ways, as like a fixed price bid with materials and a fixed price bid for labor. The labor is very attractive, but then you end up wasting half your materials, and you have to buy a second framing package in some cases. So it's all something to look out for, and keep your eye on the details. And these things you wouldn't know about if you weren't your own general contractor. The price would just go up. A lot of general contractors work on price plus, or cost plus.
Yeah.
And so they're not willing to, or not, they don't really care about the cost of the materials or waste, because they're going to get a percentage of whatever the total cost of materials is.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's so many different contractors out there. I mean, you kind of touched on it about relationships. At some point, you are going to have to build relationships. Do you build that with somebody who's got their own team of subs that you trust and like? Does the contractor that you've picked have enough credibility, have enough of a track record that you know that they can consistently pick subcontractors? Those are a lot of the questions. Even I guess I'm pointing out that you don't want to take it for granted. Like, just because you go get a GC, you don't necessarily want to take for granted that they're motivated by the same things you're motivated by. We've learned that by working with tons of different GCs. And I like working with clients who want to be their own GC. I think it's fun. And some people, they get kind of their hands slapped by design firms, because design firms don't always want to do that, because there's so many things that can go wrong. So it's not necessarily our place to vet people. I'm not going to be like, Paul, because we didn't have this conversation back then. We would just give you architectural designs, structural engineering, and you went and got it built. That was your magic. But not everybody had that same outcome. A lot of people have shopped and shopped and shopped for GCs.
Yeah, I would say that the most important part in making the decision to be your own general contractor is, are you comfortable with what you're building? Is it within your wheelhouse? Like a stick framed house is unknown for me. I understand how it goes together. We have a code book that tells you how to do that. But now when you get into something more architectural with steel beams, concrete, and engineered plans by a structural engineer, you really got to have a general contractor that's familiar with those processes and knows what's involved in scheduling work and what the workflow looks like to assemble something like that. And if you're not comfortable with that, it's probably not a good idea to be your own general contractor. It's all about the scope. If you're building on the side of a mountain, you're probably going to want a general contractor that's done that before and knows the anchoring and how to check and make sure the house isn't going to slide off.
Right. And read plans. I mean, we engineer them, we stamp them, and we send them off. But there's been several times when I've gotten phone calls on the job site, and the client's like, "I don't remember designing it this way," and I'm like, "Because you didn't." And the dude's doing it his way. So that's a whole different conversation. But yeah, as a GC, one of the things that really wanted to shift a little bit toward, you mentioned the affidavit that Cherokee County will have you sign. So I know of some people in particular who are building in Cherokee County, so that's good for them to know if they haven't found that out already, to be your own GC. But the other potential roadblock that can come up in the process is the construction loan process. I know a lot of banks prefer to have a licensed GC on the construction note, or somebody who's at least got a track record. Some of the loan officers I've spoken with tell us that a typical construction loan is going to include vetting process of a GC. So how did you get around that?
The construction loan process was for my main house that I was not a general contractor on. I was the specialty contractor. My father-in-law was the builder, and he had a track record of building houses. Special circumstance, the bank that we got the construction loan through was owned by a friend, and that was a whole a pretty easy process for him to just get us a loan and sign it over to us. But the bank themselves, they're very strict. They were actually more strict about construction progress than the building code enforcement. And the main thing I didn't know when I got the construction loan was that the first distribution, which the construction loan is not normally 100%, it's usually, ours was a 75% loan. First distribution happened when sheathing was on the roof.
Really?
So that is the entire foundation, all the framing, all the roofing structure, and the sheathing. And then once the sheathing was complete, was the very first distribution. So you got to basically, that 25% that's not covered by the loan is eaten up pretty quickly, just by site prep, even putting a driveway in. We were doing on raw land, so I had to build a dam to get to the property. And that was.
This is the other property, not the one in Acworth we're talking about, right?
This is across the street from the build site.
Yeah. Okay. So on the small one that we designed with you, that one you took on entirely as your own GC, right?
GC, and I did a home equity line of credit to finance it. So I had just a bank account.
Yeah, and that's what is typical too. I thought it was just good to ask the question, what does the construction loan process look like for somebody who's thinking about financing and building their own home? What should they be thinking about? Self-financing seems to be, obviously you're not going to have the same restrictions, and you're not going to have a draw schedule like you're just talking about. You're not getting your funds until this happens or that happens.
Right.
So what was the biggest challenge? Like, what was the biggest, when talking more about being your GC, and I know this is a small project, the one in Acworth we're talking about, but again, I'm just trying to think about, if I'm going to go do this on my own, build my own house without a GC at all, what was the hardest part of it for you, or has been?
Time management has been really hard for me. I wish I could take some time off work, just like a consistent, maybe 2 or 3 months, and just finish everything out. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I've started a few businesses in the process of building this house, and they've taken up a lot of my time. But the one thing you can think about as being your own GC is you're going to save some money. A general contractor is going to charge 10 or 20%, depending on the scope of the house and the complexity of it, on top of the cost of the house. So if you're building a $300,000 house, that's $30,000 or $60,000. If you can take the time off work to dedicate to putting the house together in 3 to 6 months, you'll know you'll be learning a lot about your house. You know it's getting done right, and you can save that money, and it basically just income replacement. You're still spending the money by not going to work, but you're building your own house.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people, once they do their own house, they really enjoy it. It's a fun process watching a house go up, knowing something that you've arranged all the people to be putting it together, or you're doing it yourself. And a lot of people turn that into a career, they go out and get their own, builder's license. It's not tough. It's just you learn the code book and take the contractor's license and form a business. But that's always a path too. If you're interested in becoming a general contractor, build your own house first, see how you like it. And maybe it's a bridge to a new career.
Yeah. Time's that thing we don't get back. So it's, what are you going to put it toward? And if it's not satisfying, it's not rewarding, then, you could save money, but it doesn't really seem to be a reason to do it. It seems to me, a lot of the times when we talk to people who really get excited about these types of things, is because they have something personal invested in it. That tends to be a winning project. And that tends to be what pushes you through those challenges, because it is hard and you have to own so much of it. And you probably can tell me more than anybody else, like, things just don't go the way you expected. Like,
there's always complications. Like I had one complication on this house where I did a pocket door, and the pocket door frame that I bought from the manufacturer was actually out of spec. And I didn't realize it until drywall and all trim was in and painted. And I went to go hang the door, and the door floats inside the opening. Like it's a 36-inch opening, and I had to get a specialty door made to even fit it. So that's always a complication.
Yeah, but that's how life goes. That's how buildings go. That's how everything goes. And so it's like, if you're not ready to get into that with that mentality of, I know something's not going to go as planned, and how am I going to handle it? It's going to be really hard. Building a good team is very important. And I felt like what I enjoyed about our experience with you was taking more of a team approach on the design. I wanted the design to be something that we had some stake in. I feel really, really proud just being a part of it personally. When I look at your home and I see it build under construction, and the progress pics that you shared with me, I'm like, man, I got to be a part of that. Jack Baldwin personally, my company, our architect, everybody got to be involved in seeing that happen. And so that in itself is very rewarding for homeowners, for designers, for builders. I'm bringing that up because I want to talk to you about the vision. You kind of mentioned it a little bit on this being originally a place for your grandmother to live, and then now becoming more of a vacation rental sort of place. But design-wise, inspiration-wise, you mentioned pocket doors. There's things that you had in mind about design when you went into this. So I just want to kind of hear your vision. What was inspiring you? What were you going for? What were you trying to capture as you were designing with us?
Yeah, so Ashley and I actually, my wife, we met in architecture school. So we were both architects for at least 2 years. So we wanted something original designed. We like to have play with the light and have it come in during the morning and light the house up. So there's a clear story with the windows that come through the ceilings. It's 1,100 square foot house. It's tiny. But it has 17-foot ceilings. So it's very tall. A lot of the design was inspired by the lot. The lot is a kind of unusual shape, and we wanted to have a view of the lake. We also wanted to have some covered areas that are built into the roof of the house. I'm not a big fan of uncovered deck or patio areas. I like to have the roof over them. So the roof of the house is, if the house is 1,100 square feet, the roof is 2,200 square feet. So it has a lot of extension over the living spaces outside, and the continuous lines were the inspiration for the design. Ashley came up with it, and then we kind of had a sketch, and we sent it to you guys for final plans. And you guys pointed out some problems where we didn't have any utility closets for any of the systems, so we added that. and did some bump outs, and that definitely influenced the design. And it was turned out nice. And actually, it's really nice for a vacation house now because all the systems of the house are accessible through an outside door. So if you need to service something, you go do that without having to interrupt the customer.
Can I interject?
Absolutely, Ashley. Actually, just is Paul's wife. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so we were always designing it to be, elderly accessible, because my grandparents were going to live there, and we were thinking long term in building this, in that it would be an Airbnb. So we knew we were going to do luxury finishes. We knew, we wanted it to be small and 1-story. And then we also knew we would probably either move our parents into it later, or we would retire to it. So we had all those things in mind. So we were designing like a 0 entry shower, heated floors. Old people are cold. So we had some of those things in mind, as we were, what's the long-term use of this and the immediate term. So
yeah, I love that. That's really insightful. Yeah, because design intent also is not just aesthetics. It's not just what you look at and be like, I love black, or I love these finishes. But just like you said, Ashley, if you were thinking about someone who's going to be aging there, a heated floor really makes sense for folks who need a warm place to walk when they're getting in and out of the shower, for example. Or how accessible are things? Pocket doors are very easy to open and close when they work and when they are the right size. And so all of that informs your design, right? Or having a covered area for the porch, keeping it shaded in the summertime, having an outdoor place to sit when it's raining. It's really neat to see form and function come together like that. So yeah, Ashley, thanks for including those thoughts about your design intent. What else were y'all going for, if while we're on the topic?
Yeah, she mentioned some of the things we were talking about was accessibility was the main reason for the pocket doors. Every door in the house is 36 inches. We had originally had a bunch of grab bars in the bathroom area designed, and we framed the bathroom and made sure we had lots of blocking in the framing behind the drywall for things like that. They're not going to go in at this point, but that's really nice as your own general contractor to be able to think about the little details that are going to make the house better in the long run. And blocking is one of the biggest things I can mention when you're in the framing process, is putting all the studs and cross bracing in the walls where you're going to be hanging things, like cabinets.
Yeah.
We have some floating shelves. The bracing for the handicapped accessible toilet was big on our list. But stuff like that usually gets overlooked if you're not there every day or you're involved with it. Some of the general contractors I've worked with, they don't work on just your house. They usually have 5 or 6 of them going at a time. So the attention to detail can be greater if you're doing it yourself.
Yeah, that's a really good point. That can work to your advantage. It can work to your disadvantage. On the one hand, they may learn something or be able to save some time as they're working on other homes. And on the other hand, they may be late to the job, or something could take their attention. I have 2 more questions, and I want to get to some Q&A time, because I know of some people who might want to hear your experience since you're farther along than them in the process. But what was the most rewarding thing? I mean, you touched on some of the things that were rewarding for you and Ashley, but and Ashley, I'd love to hear your answer too. During the experience up till now, what has been the most rewarding, and what are the things you'd like to repeat if you ever did it again?
I really like just walking up to it and going to work on it, and knowing that everything that I'm doing in there is the way I want it.
Yeah.
In my current house, I missed a couple of days when I was working, and the electricians came in and wired switches that don't make any sense. Like they're like, where's the switch that needs to turn this light on? That's on the other side of this wall. Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So having the ability to be in control of that and get it right, that's worth a lot. Especially when you're going to be living in the house eventually.
Absolutely. Ownership.
Yeah.
real ownership. Ashley, is there anything you'd add? What was rewarding for you?
Probably being able to get it to do everything from start to finish. You know, we've already done this once, so we sort of learned. You know,
Right.
you really need to start planning out your furniture and things when you're designing a house too. So, you know, we've tried to be a little more conscious of that. I haven't really gotten. I mean, I've gotten to pick some of the finishes so far, but I mean, you know, I have a design background, so you know, just kind of exciting being able to like be thinking about what you're going to pick along the way. And, you know, some of those design decisions really have to be made in that, even in that framing part of the job. You really need to be thinking about where you're going to put your furniture. It's funny, in our current house, you know, we picked a plan. We had no idea. We were like, oh, we have to have a plan. We were, you know, we didn't have as much money when we built our first house, so we were very conscious of what we were spending, so we couldn't afford to hire an architect at that point. But you know, we get in our house and you have to make, once the furniture's in, you have to make all these turns to like go from our master bedroom to the outside. Right. So you know, we're trying to be really conscious about how we're moving things around in this house. So that's probably my favorite part, is actually being able to think through the whole process, you know, from the architecture of the house to how we're going to lay out the furniture and how people are going to move around in the space.
Yeah, that's an awesome point. Getting to have it your way means having the home that you really want, that suits your taste and style and needs. But it also means, I think what I'm hearing you say, Ashley, is if you don't plan ahead, if things like getting the furniture, the space planning, or how you're actually going to live in the home is an afterthought, it's very easy to find a floor plan that you get excited about. It's really easy to find a design that you get really excited about. And you can be like, all right, that's what we're building. And if somebody doesn't push back on that design a little bit, or think about accessibility, or think about those tight corners, or where's your 70-inch TV going to go, those are all parts of design. That's part of architecture. It's not just you know, how it looks from the street. Architecture really goes into the space planning as well, and in the interiors. Those are some great points. I want to get to some Q&A, but before I do that, Paul, what's your biggest piece of advice? If somebody came up to you and be like, hey, I want to build my own house, would you say, no, run, go hire somebody? Or would you say, take my course? Or
my course? No, I would say just make sure that you understand what you're getting into, and you either have to have really good subcontractors that you trust, or you need to know what they're doing and know how to do it better than they can do it. You don't necessarily have to do it. They can do it faster and cheaper probably, but if you don't know what they're doing, there's a good chance they could do it wrong, and you just be wasting a lot of time and money. And you need to know how to recognize good quality.
Yeah, there's always those guys who just want to get work done and go home, and they're tiling your bathroom. So,
oh yeah, and your shower leaks, and you have to tear it all out.
Right. Paul, I know you started a few businesses. I want to do some Q&As, but is there anything you'd like to just mention about what you do, since you joined us today, and I know you got your Goodwood logo on your shirt. What do you want to tell us about?
I'm an electrical engineer. I do factory automation, and I'm also a forensic expert witness for industrial accidents. Okay.
I thought you and Ashley had a business of producing printed materials, or
that's Ashley's and I's business. That's not my business totally. Ashley and I also have a company that sells alphabet magnets, and stickers, home decor. We have a wholesale and retail aspect to that.
Okay. And, yeah, that's something I thought that some of the people on our call might be interested in. So I wanted to give you a chance to talk about it.
Sure. Yeah, it's the Typeset Co. is the website, and it's alphabet magnets and magnet boards based around home decor. And
yeah, we do some home decor stuff with people sometimes.
Yeah, go check them out.
Well, I'll drop some links in too. David Carlisle, who's building with us up in Crandall, Georgia, he's got really beautiful, him and his wife Melissa have a really beautiful property up in the mountains. I want to read his question, but David, if you want to add to it, go for it. But I thought this was worth hearing. I would love to be my own GC. Listening to this, I'm overwhelmed because I don't have architecture school or a dad that may or may not have been a builder. He said, I'd like to hear more about this topic from the side of no experience in building my own home. Also financing from the bank. I didn't hear details to get around the fact that banks will not do a deal without you having a builder's license. How do you get around that? So we kind of touched on it. We all have 50% of the money, but loan for the rest. So yeah, David, in your case, I would say definitely get a GC involved since you don't want to be involved and you feel overwhelmed already. But what my hope is, by including Paul in this conversation, this wasn't like an evangelism attempt to get people to go be their own GC necessarily, or an attempt to scare people into hiring a GC. It's really more about you understanding the process as a homeowner, because the more you understand what it's like for Paul to do it on his own, or what it's like for somebody else to get a GC, it's what questions to ask. That's, like, to me, the most paramount thing of importance. What questions are you asking? What things are you looking for? And that helps when you go to the bank. It helps when you talk to a GC and interview them and find out if they are the right fit for you. It helps when you talk to an architect. Why should you do that? You may have a plan that you found online or that you're excited about, but an architect is going to help you actually execute on that design and vision. So yeah, those are some good thoughts. David, did you have a question for me or Paul to follow up on that?
I would say that you should definitely talk to your bank that's going to be doing the construction loan and find out if they do require a general contractor. My experience does not cover that. So we had a general contractor with a building license for the house that we built with a construction loan.
And to Paul's point too, your capital going into it. So if you're doing 50-50 or something like that, or 20-75 financing, whatever, your capital is going to go into things like you mentioned, Paul, like site prep and that construction budget. We like to think, oh, X per square foot, that's how much building material I get to build with. But it's also going to be your paving and your site clearing, and do you need a well? Do you need septic? All these things that go into site prep is capital. So if you get to a point where you're preparing the site for construction and the bank wants to see certain benchmarks before they release funding, that's going to be capital. That's going to be invested money that you're going to have to get to an endpoint to get to that next spot. So having a GC, or at least somebody who knows what they're doing to help you get those things done so that you're doing things in the right order is going to be very important. Were there any other questions? I want to just open it up. If you want to unmute, if you want to raise your hand, if you want to pop something into the chat, we'll do about 10 minutes of questions.
It looks like Vicky's got her hand up.
Vicky, yeah. Vicky's in Canton, and she's building her own house just like you are, Paul. So she needs to hear all the things.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for all the information you shared. We're gonna start breaking ground actually on December 18th. So we're not there yet. Yes, it's been a long process, yes. And getting all the contractors lined up was our biggest challenge. The construction loan was not so much, because we have a friend who kind of went through it and told us all the things that we have to overcome. So we prepared for that. And basically, we found a bank, New Century Bank out of Kansas, who they accept loans without a general contractor. But they will require a lot of backup paperwork.
Yeah.
And of course, you have to have a really good credit score and sufficient down payment to do that.
Yep.
But it was a breeze for us to do that once we knew what we have to overcome. So.
Yeah, very good. Do you have any questions for Paul, or any nuggets of advice based on what you heard, Vicky?
No, I can't add anything to I'm sorry.
No.
But I can just confirm what you've said. I've gone through a lot of those things that you've said in the preparation. It was a lot of work, just like not even having enough contractors, but just getting the good ones, you know. So we didn't really bet a lot, but we knew from a couple of builders who to get, and they've done well for us in estimating and just talking us through the process.
I just wanted to add a couple of things to just to reinforce what you said. With the construction loan, it's very important to have a budget and have it broken down into the distributions you're going to be getting from the bank to what needs to be done and what those things are going to cost. Once you have a good budget of what things are going to cost, you know exactly what you need to get charged by your subcontractors, and that's going to be your main source of negotiation. I remember when we were building our house, we had $1,000 budget to do all the tile in the house. So, and it was going to be like 500 square foot. So I told my wife, you got to go buy something that's $2 a square foot, because that's all the money we have. And you got to be real careful with these when you have a construction loan about doing upgrades, because you'll say, oh, well, we have a little bit of extra money. We'll upgrade this. We'll upgrade that. Well, that adds up really quick, and you can run out of money very fast.
And that's, I mean, this is kind of when you and I met, Paul, we would give you guys, and a lot of our clients would be like, what do you want us to draw? And give us the land, we'll draw it for you. And here you go. And you guys are really good at then specifying everything on your own. Vicky's done a little bit of that too. But the message there is like the only way to know your budget's to specify it. Like that's the only way. You have to know what materials are going into this, and you need a context for how much those things cost. Are they high dollar or low dollar? So what I want for people when we try to help somebody get their home built, what I want is to help them go through the process of picking those things out so that they know how much they cost, and then we work with them to go find those things. It's a really hard process sometimes, because sometimes you're going to a vendor who's only going to give you list pricing, but it gives you some context for what it's going to cost, and we can also usually work out designer discounts or contractor discounts along the way. But it is kind of like, it's not just finding the pretty stuff and going, oh, those colors look really great together. Well, that's part of it, but how much does that cost per square foot, and where are you going to get it? And is it good materials? So anyway, I'm going to start preaching about that.
Yeah, well, let me add to that, Jack. So the process I did for choosing the materials is like, what do I like, and what can I, like settle for? Yeah. And I took the mid-range of that, you know, because what can I afford? What do I really like? And what's the best thing I can get for the price that I have? Just get the median for that, and then you get your allowance. And I hope it works in 6 months.
Right. That's a great way to think about it, but sometimes you could get the best of certain things. If it's your home you're going to live in for a really long time, there may be a certain thing like that kitchen range. I really want the best I can get for my money on that range, but the toilets don't need to be anything special or whatever. It's like there are things that are probably going to take more of your priority and not, but going through the process of asking yourselves those questions. That's why I say, like what you just said, Vicky, is look at what you really, really like, and then how close can you get to that within your budget? That's such a good way to think about it. And then you get an allowance, because then you can look at something and you go, oh, there's $3,000 left over that we didn't spend on all these other things. Maybe we can go a little higher end on this or that, or spread it. It can be fun. It can be fun to figure that stuff out. That's really good, Vicky. I wanted to read Ashley's comments real quick. Asking around and getting referrals for contractors is very helpful. At Reynard, we want to introduce clients to contractors, so we're constantly making new relationships, and we have some preferred builders, but I also depend on our clients to introduce us to people that they like along the way. It's relationships. Like we're really trying to build a community. That's why we do these webinars. It's not just to have something fun to do, but it's about building the community so that we can come, where did you find this person? Who's a good one? So if anybody ever has referrals, like please share them with our clients and with each other. That's awesome. we really thought about what we could easily upgrade later and save on budget for that. And we spent money on things we couldn't easily upgrade later. So what I'm hearing Ashley say in that comment, it's kind of what you said, Vicky. It's like, what could you easily upgrade later? So if you got something that maybe it's within your price range now, but 10, 15 years from now, that's an easy thing to put some more money into. Like you can easily rip and replace this type of tile or wallpaper, or whatever. But a floor may not be, a floor may be way more disruptive. So you don't want to rip and replace your floor later and to upgrade it unless that's part of the design plan.
I have an example of that. A pretty big one. We wanted to do natural stone on our main house, the one that we're living in now, and we couldn't afford it. It was way out of our budget. So what we did was we cast into the foundation a stone ledge, which is a 3-inch extension of the foundation where the stone can sit. And then we put vinyl siding on the house. So the vinyl siding was just a stopgap measure to get the house completed in the time allotted under budget. And later on, that could just be ripped off and the stone replaced.
That's so wise, like vinyl doesn't rot. And if it's not in a place that you're looking at it every day, you can live with the visibility of it. And if you know what the warranty is or the whatever, how long you've got a lifespan on it. Or maybe it's a roof. Maybe you put a 15 or 30-year roof on and later you want that metal roof or that really nice shingle or whatever. Like that's a great way to think of it. And then what cannot easily be upgraded later, So
windows and doors are the big one for not easily to upgrade.
Exactly.
I would definitely spend money on windows. I went cheap on windows and I regret it every day.
Well,
not my new house.
Yeah, thanks for doing that. I think you got to put Marvin in there, didn't you? Or
we have Anderson casement windows.
They're beautiful. I remember those. But yeah, windows are a great example, not just because of deterioration, but that's where you lose heat and where you gain heat. That's the number one place you lose and gain heat. So if you put cheap windows in, guess what? Not only your materials, UV light can reduce the finishes on things. It can also, a cheap window is going to let in a lot of heat, let out a lot of heat. So your heating and cooling is going to go up. So your costs are going to go higher. So I want to get this question before I start getting too chatty here. Suggestions for planning your construction budget. Oh, wait. Not having experience, but having the drive to be my own GC. So I'm not sure who wrote this. It says unknown. I need to schedule an Excel to plan it all out ahead of my budget to limit surprises. Any resources you can suggest? First resources to this question is partnering. It's finding design professionals and contractors and vendors and subcontractors, kind of like Paul's saying, it is a research, it is a thing. But I would say build a team. I like to think that our team, when we come to a design project, we're kind of tasking ourselves with helping people find what their budget should be and like what's a realistic budget and then what can you get within that budget. I believe that was Marnie who asked that question. We've been talking to her about being her own GC. So Marnie, if you do want to chime in and ask any follow-ups, please do. But yeah, the suggestion would be plan ahead if you're thinking about your budget, coming up with what allowances you're going to need for site prep, for interiors, for exteriors. Paul, do you want to speak to that? Like what?
Yeah, the main thing, if you're doing a construction loan, the bank is going to have a distribution schedule based on milestones. So if you have an idea of the total number that you can spend on the house once you convert this over to a mortgage, you're going to find out what kind of percent construction loan you're getting, and then you could basically just determine what exact dollar amounts are going to be in each phase of distribution. And that's going to be the holy grail to figure out what your budget is, because if you exceed that, you're going to have to come up with the money on your own. But yeah, the distribution schedule is going to be a percentage of what the bank is giving you based on certain milestones.
Right.
And you have to complete those milestones, and you can't go out of order because you'll run out of budget.
Yeah, Marnie, does that answer your question, or would you like to unmute and follow up if you can?
I can try. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, there you are. Hey.
Awesome. Thank you for all of the information. So mine is I'm much more of a planner, which I guess you need to be, right? We've got to have a budget. We have to know all the things before we get started, so there are no surprises. Well, there will be surprises, but to prepare yourself as best you can. So in my mind, I'm thinking, I don't know where to start first, like, to schedule those GCs. You need to have the floor in before you schedule the tile, before you schedule, just all the things to get started. I need my grader, and then I should allow this amount of time for the grader. This is what it's going to cost. They're just things that I'm not going to think of. My thought is that there are things that I'm not going to think of, and having kind of a schedule of the way construction goes, so that I'm knowledgeable when I go in to ask all of these questions. And then knowing, like, you need to have a budget for rough and electrical, but you also have to have a budget for the finish. All those little tiny details that I don't know, because I've depended on others to do that in the past.
Yeah, that is a big challenge.
Any of the subcontractors that you talk to, if you tell them your situation where you're going to be your own general contractor and you need to know what the phases and budget for each phase is, they know this. Electrical contractors are going to base it off the square footage of the house, the finished living area. They'll give you a very, very good estimate of what rough-in is going to be and what finish out is going to be. And they'll give you different options based on, like, what kind of light switches do you like, and how much automation do you want, if any. HVAC is the same way. They're going to know a very good number for rough-in and final. HVAC is one of the ones where it's real cheap to rough-in and real expensive to finish out. I discovered that in my first house, where the rough-in was like $3,000, and then the final came, and I had a code violation where my furnace was in a garage, and they required commercial ducting, which was a $10,000 adder to a $20,000 HVAC system. That was a big blow to my budget right at the end, within like the final month of construction. So I would talk to your subcontractors, and they will walk you through that. They definitely have a handle on that, and they also give you ideas about when things need to happen, like excavating for a foundation, and then the slab or whatever needs to get laid out, and then the plumbers have to come in. Plumbers are the first people to come in to put all the plumbing in the slab, and then the foundation people come in and put all their work on top of that. So there's a lot that goes into that.
And also, Paul, you mentioned this is kind of another way of attacking it, but you mentioned the construction loan and the certain benchmarks that they want to see. That can kind of work as a guidebook. If you know I've got to get through this phase to get my next draw, then you just know that's what, and that's what the banks are looking for a well-built home, because they want that too. From an architecture perspective, from the design perspective, we're designing in those phases, anticipating a certain order of things. So a lot of times clients will ask us, like, when do I order the framing package, and when do I order the windows and doors? And we provide those schedules, and then direct our clients on when to go ask those questions during design, before you're still in pre-construction. So it's kind of like putting that puzzle piece together, Marnie, right? So but yeah, going through the Excel spreadsheet as well, pulling up specifications, coming up with those budgets, understanding room by room, material for material, and then coming up with a program and a schedule for how the construction is going to go. I think that should be handled during the design process, not during the construction process. So you're anticipating that order of things. But yeah, that's overwhelming for sure. Does that help, Marnie? Did you want to follow up with anything?
No, that's helpful. We will not have a construction loan. It's cash. Yeah. We've been waiting about 3 years to build a house for things to settle. We're up in the mountains, and everybody from Atlanta has been rushing up here to build second homes, which is driving everything through the roof. And subcontractors are not necessarily quality, and builders are charging crazy things. So that's kind of forcing me into, if I want to get it done, I need to plan and have that budget, because I want to try to stay with it. Well, I have to stay within that budget.
Yeah. One really big tip that I used a very unconventional supply house for all of my framing package, windows, and doors, and that was Home Depot. Home Depot Pro Services are very, very competitive. So they basically will coach you something, and then you just mention, hey, send it to the bid room, which is just a button on their computer that they press, and it takes almost all their margin off of the cost. Amazing. Like I beat some of the big supply houses like Loomis, the big one in Cartersville. I can't remember it, but a lot of the big supply, I had them bid, all of them bid the lumber package and the windows, and Home Depot beat them by thousands of dollars.
We need to do a mastermind every month, Paul, where Vicky and you and Marnie come together and say, like, I found the hot button today.
Yep. Free delivery. And if you have excess, you can return it to Home Depot. Get it right back on your credit card.
Dang. There's your hot tips for the day, Marnie.
That's a great tip. Home Depot is a half a mile down the road.
Yeah. Anytime you spend over $1,500 at Home Depot, you can go through the Pro Desk and get it through the bid room, which will give you an automatic discount.
Man.
You don't need a builder license or anything.
Thank you.
Are they good with lumber?
Very good. Yeah. So they're really great with lumber. The only thing they don't have is super long sticks. So if you need like anything over 16 feet, you'll have to get it from somewhere else. But you can limit that. Your architect can limit that.
We'll
All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Marnie brought up a really good point, which hopefully we can keep talking about, but reasons to do it on your own, cash in hand. I'd still want to get some kind of a draw schedule for your benefit, just as a guidebook. Even if we're not going to the bank, it might be helpful just to talk to some of our other clients and our builders. You know, we've got guys who are on site building all the time, so we could definitely work with them to get you kind of like here's an order of things kind of to a build. But you brought up some good points about when you are in the mountains and you're tasked with tasking yourself or with going and finding other subs, that you got to find good people. And how do you? Because you're looking at the local work market there. So there's a lot of challenges that are just baked into the process. They're not insurmountable, but that's the reality. So I appreciate that you're kind of looking at it from a real point of research and understanding.
I have something to add also. As an owner builder, you're able to really shop around and not have to go through the contractor or the GC. For example, we found a great marble slab for like less than a good porcelain tile. And we were so excited about that. It was the only thing that I bought before anything was secured. Because I didn't want to miss out on the sale. And there's a great marble place on I-85 near Floor & Decor. The guy is amazing. He's got so much stuff in there, and he does hotels, and he has a lot of closeouts that are so decent, so good, so beautiful. So anyway, I wanted to share that because that's a big thing.
That's a big deal, but I do want to say to somebody like David, if Melissa finds that tile or countertop she really wants, and you have a builder, I would go talk to those builders. Like, regardless of whether you're doing it on your own or not, get so engaged that you're asking those questions. Like, can we go ahead and put this in? Will it work? You know. Anyway, I love that, Vicky. Thank you. You're going to be my next guest, and I'm not even kidding, for our next webinar.
Stephanie, the designer, was with us when we bought that. So I got her approval.
Good.
Jeff, one more quick question of the group. So often I seem to be hearing, I mean, the prices are astronomical, what they're asking per square foot. And that's a big fear of mine, because an average house now is $1 million for 2,500 to 3,000 square feet. So I'm hearing anywhere from 350 to 500 a square foot, which is frightening to me for a decent build. So what are you guys anticipating, those of you who are building, and what are you actually seeing?
Paul and Vicky would have a really good insight on that, but I want them to answer how they're comfortable. But Marnie, their budgets when they shared with me were not far off from what your budgets were that you shared with me. But yeah, did y'all want to speak to that from experience, either one?
We started that little house right in the peak of the lumber cost, and it was very painful, but I felt we were on a strict timeline to get it completed for Ashley's grandmother. I would have liked to wait, but a lot of things happened. We actually had to go through a rezoning process on that property too, which took, I think, 4 or 5 months, which was unexpected. But yeah, it's expensive. And I think this 1,100 square foot house, Ashley can probably chime in more, but it's probably be $250,000 to $300,000 when it's all done.
Yeah. So for me, we started this journey maybe less than 2 years ago, because we bought this piece of land in Canton last year in August. And at that time, we were looking to spend $200 per square foot for a 3,000 square foot house. And that was doable then. Not now. For the quality that we want, we can't do it with a GC. And that's why we decided not to have a GC, because we wanted to save money. And at this time, I think our price is about $250 square foot.
Yeah.
Again, it can be 200 if I choose less expensive materials, but I didn't want to build something that I'm gonna have for a lifetime,
Yeah. And again, I liked what Ashley said about upgrading. What you want to have today and what you want to invest money in over time. That's part of a design. Even with a builder, I think sometimes, Vicky, we've seen builders hit that price per square foot. So good builders who are working with you on materials can keep it under 300. But yeah, it's all relative, as you guys know, but I think that's good context. Like, what are the price of materials?
Yeah.
Does that help, Marnie?
Yes, very helpful.
I hope
It's
you're
hard
not
to
more
hold
scared.
that a 2,500 to 3,000 square foot house will cost me, literally, I've been told multiple times, $1 million.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like it has to. Unless you want it to.
Sounds like you're in Blue Ridge.
Yes.
You guessed it.
Is that just a house or land included in that price?
Sorry, we have the land. We have about 27 acres. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it makes sense.
Well, y'all, thank you so much. We're at 11 o'clock. Unless anybody wanted to have a final thought with Jerry Springer, I'm up for anybody wants to chime in. But otherwise, I was going to wrap up. David, you're a big Jerry Springer fan, aren't you?
Oh yeah, he's my uncle.
I was just trying to think of people who might remember it, because I think Paul and I were in high school and we would come home and watch it.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, I'm getting off the rails. Y'all, thank you for joining me today. We will be doing another one at least monthly. These types of conversations, just to I really love when our community comes together. We're just sharing helpful ideas. So we'll keep doing this, and really appreciate the participation. That's what makes it successful. So thanks for taking time out of your morning. Paul, thank you so much for being my host with us and just talking us through the process. It was very helpful.
Yep, no problem.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, guys.